So Limbaugh feels it's okay to call a college student who attends a Catholic university and goes before a committee to testify and is denied the right to testify simply because the head of that committee, Darrell Issa, is the pig bastard that he is. And then Limbaugh decides to rip this college student to pieces. He calls her a slut and a whore and a prostitute. I hope Sandra Fluke, this Georgetown University law student, will sue this pig for everything he's got. And instead of apologizing for those comments that he made on Thursday, he geared up for round two, according to I think it's Crooks and Liars. Limbaugh said that he would, quote, happily buy Sandra Fluke all the aspirin she wants to put between her knees in lieu of contraception. And then he expanded his offer to the whole university. This is what he said. Quote, a Georgetown co-ed told Nancy Pelosi's hearing that the women in her law school program are having so much sex they're going broke. So you and I should have to pay for their birth control. That's what he said. So what would you call that? I call it what it is. So I'm offering a compromise today. I will buy all the women at Georgetown University as much aspirin but put between their knees as they want. And, of course, he was referencing Rick Santorum's angel. What's his name? Foster Freese, who made the comment about the gals in his day who put aspirin between their knees, did a contraception. And then he went on. This is how Limbaugh, you know, the day he dies, I hope I'm still alive. The day he dies, I can't help it. I will take the night off and go out and celebrate because of the poison that this man has pumped into this country for the past almost 30 years. You miserable, rotten, rancid human, you. Then he said this. So, Miss Fluke and the rest of you feminazis, here's the deal. If we are going to pay for your contraceptives and thus pay for you to have sex, we want something. We want you to post the videos online so we can all watch. And to Premier Radio Network that carries this pig, shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. To the women who work at Premier, how can you do this? How do you do this? How do you go to work knowing that your network is putting this kind of woman hate all over this country? How do you do it? How do you do it? This son of a bitch who's been married 4 times and broomed them all. You know what you call a woman who marries or hangs out with Rush? A victim. So Limbaugh is now the high priest of the Republicans. You'll notice not a single Republican member of the House or the Senate came out today and said, Rush, put a goddamn cork in it. None of them. Well, I hate to say this, but there was a time in this country not so long ago when a man like Limbaugh, who said the things about this young woman that he said, he would be dead already. This woman's family, the male members. I realize how sexist this is, but this is the way it was. Her father, her brothers, her male cousins, they would have armed themselves and dragged this porker into the street and put bullets all over his body. You realize, you know that, don't you? You do know that. There was a time in this country where a man who made comments like that, now, was it a time of overarching sexism? Yes, of course. It was a terrible time, wasn't it? Oh, this and oh, that. You're goddamn right it was. But this kind of stuff, you see, Limbaugh would have been dead meat an hour after he would have said this. To say this on the radio, to take this young woman and rip her to pieces in front of his millions of listeners. A different time, a different place. Limbaugh, you and Andy would have been dancing a jig together tonight in whatever sewer you both wind up. My God. My God. When are the Republicans going to speak out about this filthy hunk of poison, Rush Limbaugh. When's that going to happen? I understand 3 or 4 of his major advertisers have bailed. It's time. You know, it really is time to pull the plug on this son of a bitch. To Premier Radio Network, you people should be ashamed. I mean, you really should. Distributing that guy. Oh, you're gonna say it's entertainment, right? Oh, well, he's just entertaining, Malloy. Was Hitler entertaining? Huh? Is a guy who walks in the street and guns down homeless people, is he entertaining? Was the guy that tried to assassinate Gabrielle Giffords, was he entertaining? Come on, Premier Radio Network. You have a publicly held license. You have been spewing poison across this country for years. Why don't you pull the plug on this son of a bitch now? Don't you think? Send him to internet heaven like Beck got banished to. Nah, as long as there's money to be made, huh? The Detroit Free Press, of all places, had an editorial today. Brian Dickerson wrote, there's a school of thought that holds the best way to deal with something like Rush Limbaugh is to ignore him. The way you might avoid calling attention to a toddler who's just puked all over your new sofa, or a demented great uncle who starts spewing racial epithets at the Thanksgiving table. There's a lot to be said for this approach. Ignoring isolated assaults on civility generally diminishes their impact and accelerates their transit to oblivion. Drawing attention to the offender or assisting that others join in a formal denunciation of his indiscretion tends to accomplish exactly the opposite. The danger is that what passes for discreet silence, when this kind of behavior is overlooked once or twice, may be interpreted as acquiescence. When such behavior goes unremarked again and again and again. So I'd like to propose that it is time for politicians, commentators, and sponsors who wish to remain in good standing as members of the civilized world to put some distance between themselves and the hate-mongering sociopath who calls himself Rush Limbaugh. What a filthy, filthy, disgusting man. And the hostage that is his wife. I mean, I can only imagine. Somebody's got a picture of her out there now. And I can't imagine. I look at this picture and I think, okay, you really do exist. You appear to be a human being. What does it take for a woman to decide that she wants to share a toilet and a bed and a refrigerator with this Jabba the Hutt? I mean, what is that? Or to have his fingers exploring her nether part, her lady parts. What? How do you do that? A Limbaugh, by any definition, is grotesque. I mean, just physically grotesque. He looks like a huge porcine rat. But how does an otherwise, one assumes, intelligent woman do that? You know, I've asked this before. I'll ask it again. He's had, 4 or 5 marriages? A couple of... a woman I used to work with at CNN wound up living with him for a while. I forget her name. She's gone. I mean, I don't know. It's just been too weird. Too weird this week, listening to this, seeing the United States Senate and presidential candidates just pulling out all the stops, railing against women, trying to cover it up with this religious garbage, this religious cover vomit nonsense. But this is, I mean, it's just out there now, isn't it? And then the Pigman doing this, attacking a woman repeatedly. And this sociopathic bastard, I mean, every time it's mentioned, he does this with global climate change. He does it with any effort to try to stabilize international relations. He's a warmonger. He had a cyst on his ass that kept him out of service in Vietnam. He just went and hid under his mother's petticoats. Oh, I've got a boil on my ass. I can't go.